This lesson is on a concept called the rhetorical situation. A rhetorical situation is important to writing because it gives us the context of what it is that we're writing or reading if we're the reader of something that somebody else has created. A rhetorical situation can be defined as the context of an argument, which includes the text, readers, author constraints, and exigence. And I'll explain what exigence is a little bit below. Here's an example. You have an issue. Two people could argue over that issue. This issue stimulates discussion among people who attempt to change another person's belief. This situation is a rhetorical situation. You can see in the image here what some of the primary components of the rhetorical situation are. You have the speaker or writer and their motivations. You have their audience, maybe intended and unintended, the purpose of what they are saying or writing, and then the limitations of the message and how the writer works within those constraints or limitations. So basically, whenever we're communicating, and in this case, I'll focus on writing, writers need to think strategically using rhetorical situations and make rhetorical choices. Rhetorical choices meaning thinking about the audience, thinking about the purpose, and thinking about how the features of the writing support the audience and the purpose, like what it is the person wants to convey to somebody else. If you're in the workplace, you'll have deadlines and ethical obligations just as you do as a student. I do think about being a college student as being a job. These deadlines and obligations might be for the public, persons or institutions, or to the story itself if you are a reporter, for example, like writing something to report on it for a news organization or site. You also have the medium that you would be working in: print, video, radio, a podcast, blog, or other combination of media. Looks like I have a big gap there, so I will actually make this a little smaller and see if I can force it onto that page. Okay, there it is. Here is an image that I like to use. I often draw it on the board, that you could think about rhetoric with the rhetorical triangle. This triangle has the text, whatever the item is that the writer or speaker is creating. It might even be clothing, as I've mentioned in class, like text as in textile. There's an audience who's looking at the writing or listening to it or seeing what you have on. Who is the author? What is the purpose? What does the author want? And then what is the overall context of what's going on, which usually has a lot to do with physical spaces that we find ourselves in. It might have to do the context with genre as well. So think about your own rhetorical situation and let's consider genre. You are in a class and you will be asked to write papers for me in different genres: a personal essay for your first paper, a rhetorical analysis for your second paper, and for your third paper, an annotated bibliography, which is a research tool. So what are genres? Well, in a lot of ways you already know because you know about music genres, you know about film genres, TV shows, that sort of thing. The actual technical definition for genres are ways of writing and speaking that help people interact, communicate, and work together. Genres help writers make meaning together and help writers figure out where to start and then proceed with their writing. Genres are flexible and adaptable. They can change based on social situations and they can be adapted to suit new situations. And a lot of times we have these types of adaptations happening because of the way we consume and create media. So you'll see new types of media come onto the scene, and people will change how they write or present an idea, whether that is for educational purposes, work, or social reasons. An example of genre needing to suit a situation would be this: what worked for the geriatric patients in a nursing home setting may not work with first graders, as far as the way something is written or spoken to them. So, what about genres and writing and students? Genres give students a process. They give students a way of understanding what it is they're doing, being asked to create, or being asked to consume. Genres help writers figure out how other people, their readers, might act, react, or interact in a situation. And it helps a writer predict content organization, style, and design. This might sound abstract, but if you think about writing for a class versus writing for just to send a text to somebody, it should be very obvious how different the genre of a text is from the genre of a class paper. And that when either one of those things is created by a writer, that writer is going to think about what the situation is. Sometimes for a text, a simple K for okay is fine. Sometimes it might seem rude. It sort of depends. But then when you write for a class, it's going to have, most of the time anyway, full sentences, paragraphs, that sort of thing. So if you're thinking about genres, think about how you would react if you sat down to watch a show and you had to select from movie genres such as these. What would you pick and why? Just imagine like your own personal tastes or how your tastes might vary depending on the situation. If you are on a date, if you're watching something with your grandmother, who knows, grandmothers are all different. If you're watching something with your friend, whatever it is. Genres help us guide and prepare to write. So when we write anything for your classes, you're going to look at what's been assigned to you and signal words that are in an assignment, like asking you to evaluate or review or respond to something. Those are tied to the purpose of what you're writing. Most of the time, you're writing for a class. The purpose is you're trying to learn something and get a grade in the class. You'll organize what you write based on the type of genre. Paper assignment criteria is going to tell you how to organize your work for a class versus an Insta post, which you get to decide unless you're part of a business that's making posts online and social media. Genre affects tone very much so. For instance, a lab report is going to have a very different tone than a film review. Genres also affect design features. A review of art will have images, a research paper will have a standard font, citations, things like that. And then you will also, whenever you're writing or considering genre, you will think about audience. Stray B there that I just got rid of. Okay. So for audience, most of the time it's going to be me reading your work. And so most of what you do in my classes will be understood to be between us unless we have some kind of peer review on what you're working on. In case that happens, your audience will be other members of your class. Genre is important for its role in our expectations. When we tune into one of these stations that you might see represented here, a rock station, country, pop, R&B, or those categories on Spotify, we are going to have expectations of what that music is going to sound like because we already have an understanding of the different genres. We also, when we're talking about genre, should consider the purpose. part of our rhetorical triangle, why the writing is being done in the first place. I just have a few more genres here to illustrate how much of our life is actually spent looking at things and consuming media that we have in different categories like these, and then the music ones that are up here. We also should consider for not just genre and the rhetorical situation, but the overall idea here of rhetoric. What is the stance that a person has towards the topic? Are they objective, like neutral, strongly supportive, mildly skeptical, amused, or angry? That's going to depend very much on what you're writing and why and for whom. What's your relationship to the audience? Do you even know your audience or not? Well, I mentioned this in class before already this semester. It's easy to hide behind a keyboard and get angry online, and people do that all the time because when they don't see or know their audience, well, people often behave worse than they would otherwise. Writers will consider tone and how their audience will react to their stance and their tone. Rhetorical situations always involve context, what's already been said about a topic, or what constraints might exist, due dates, expectations, and then the word that I had up near the top, exigence. Of course, it says, I love it when it's like this. Another term for exigency. And what exactly is that? An urgent need or demand. How urgent something is profoundly affects how we communicate as well. When we are thinking about the rhetorical situation, the last thing that I want to touch on that will be a large part of the writing courses I teach, it's medium and design. Basically, what type of media is being used? What are the conventions, like rules, both spoken, unspoken, written, and unwritten, on what is done in a certain medium? Like in print, a lot of the time you're going to see paragraphs. A lot of times slides are going to have images and bullets on them. And then you may or may not see links. And then if you're dealing with visuals, there are all kinds of things that could be used with images. They might be plain, serious, warm, inviting, maybe whimsical. And there's always going to be a relationship to design and tone when we're considering rhetorical situations as well. Thanks for watching.